And this is actually one of the problems I had with Buddhism, because the concept is that everything is suffering and you should either try to avoid suffering or accept the fact that there is suffering and try not to let it bother you. So I found that a bit, it kind of leads you to inaction, and it kind of leads you to also accepting bad things rather than trying to get out of them. So that's where the philosophy kind of failed for me. I would like to have something a little more productive and hopeful rather than it's all suffering, which is kind of a glass half empty kind of a perspective, right? This is what Mother Teresa was considered problematic of, that she thought that suffering was character building, that kind of a thing. So she did a lot of work toward gathering suffering people together and praying together, but not much trying to resolve the source of the pains.
Yeah, or you can say that a weightlifter is, I mean, no one really goes, I want to go to the gym every single day and pump for 2 hours and feel the pain. But through that suffering, they find their destination or their hope or their goal. And I would say, like, people who eat well, I think it's harder to eat well than it is to just eat unhealthy. But through that, I know those are very superficial ways of explaining suffering, but I think maybe that was the path in which they were referencing. But I know some of my hardest things are through my suffering. The loss of my son when he was 18 is an ongoing, which today is his birthday.
Gosh, I'm sorry. That's really hard to take.
Yeah, it is. But through that, I have found other joys.
Yeah.
You know, it's become life-changing. It's changed my life.
Yeah.
But through that sorrow and that hardship.
But I mean, I would assume you don't look at that as a benefit, because it would have been better if that didn't have happened.
No, it's not a benefit, no.
Yeah.
But it helps me not be a victim and turn something it's hardest, horrendous thing in my life into some type of victories that are a plus, not only for me on earth, but other people that I come encounter with. I cook at a food place. I help youth ministry. So it's helped me I've leveled up in my life. Do I wish I didn't have to? Yeah. But through that suffering, I think we find hope. It's not a negative.
And you're doing your part to minimize the possibility of that happening to others, or at least, at the very least, you're helping people who go through something similar to cope better with it, right? Because you've had some lessons from it in terms of how you had to cope with it, some experience with it, I guess. So it's really nice. I mean, if you have to go through something like that, we see a lot of people become activists on whatever the particular cause of the suffering was, and that's always a good thing.
Yeah, so I think that the Buddhists, they might be going down that direction, even though at first blush, that especially for our American culture, our philosophies, sometimes the Buddhism, at first blush, it becomes very like, no, that's not working for me. But when I was in Asia, I realized they were more unified. They were more communal in their format of thinking. And as Americans, we're more individual. I'm not saying that either one is better than the other.
Yeah.
But there's some of the things that I would hear these monks tell me, I had to adjust my perception more in the way they were delivering it than the way my Western philosophy was receiving it at first blush.
I remember them saying that there was a difference between American Buddhism and Eastern Buddhism, because they were trying to grow their numbers, obviously, and that becomes donations to the temples and stuff to maintain them and such. So the differences probably go along that way. So I'm trying to make it more culturally compatible, because I think of Eastern Buddhism as more self-centered in terms of you're looking for peace within yourself kind of a thing, as opposed to maybe a little more action-oriented. It's an interesting concept to look up what the difference is between the way they're designing American Buddhism to Eastern Buddhism, because they want to attract an American audience members. It's a bit of an evolution, I think, of Buddhism, and basically ultimately it's its own sect.